Hey everybody, it's Jeremy Overturf coming to you with Skill Level Up. I invite you to like, subscribe to our page below. But what I want to talk to you about today is something that's been on my mind about a skill that you may not think of as a skill, but it's choosing the right friends, choosing the right kind of people to be around. Because did you know your friends can either make you successful or they can make you fail? They can make you rich or they can make you poor. So let me explain a little bit what I'm talking about. So on the negative side and then on the positive side, we all probably know a negative side of that equation. We all probably were told when we were kids, like, oh, I don't want you hanging around that kid or something like that. Why were our parents concerned about who we hung out with? Because, you know, in a realistic way, we all kind of understand this principle, but we may not understand to the extent that it really exists. So let me tell you a story about one of our employees. I might have used Joe in the last video. We'll call him Joe anyway. So Joe worked for us for about 5 years. He started with us when he was young, like 19. So now he's 24 years old. He's been steady, consistent. He's a great worker. He does what we ask him to do. He goes above and beyond. He's always there on time. He's always there to help. He knows the business forward and backwards. So we decided to promote Joe to an operations manager for us, for our team. Bigger responsibility for Joe, but not a huge groundbreaking responsibility. It's like maybe 4 guys under him. He just has to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, that they show up to work on time, that they, don't mess up their jobs. We're easing him into the responsibility. We know he's young and we're there to support him. Like I said, his first 5 years, super consistent, great employee. That's why we even think about promoting him to this. So after this time, we promote him. It's January. We start his new position, January 1st. Let's get started on the new year. By March, all of a sudden, this guy that was never late to work, never missed, always consistent, steady. By March, he's oversleeping, coming to work late. One day I even have to go to his house and wake him up. And we're really getting frustrated. And we went from, not only you're not going to keep this promotion, you may not be able to keep your job. So what's going on? And then one day, he just doesn't show up at all. I'm calling him, I'm texting him, I'm not getting any replies. This guy was like family to us, and so we were really worried about Joe. And just for him to do this to us was really out of his character. So we never hear from him again. I still haven't ever got a text or call back from Joe. I texted him, messaged him. I know he's okay now because I heard from other people later. So what happened to Joe? Well, what I learned happened to Joe is, like the story goes, he got in with the wrong crowd. So Joe always kind of had questionable friends, and we'd kind of frankly had that discussion with him before. But his choice of friends even kind of were getting worse. His friends were getting wilder. Some of his friends didn't have a lot of responsibilities. They didn't have steady jobs. Some of them did, but they didn't have the same schedule as Joe. And so Joe was very easily manipulated. And if they didn't have to work the next day, they expected Joe to stay out and party with them that night, even though he did have to work the next day. Joe had some people he wanted to impress, so he started, heavy drinking, experimenting with drugs, doing all kinds of crazy stuff that was way out of character for Joe, but because he really wanted to fit in with these people that he was hanging around. So it's a sad tale, but unfortunately the people that we're surrounding ourselves with have a huge influence on our actions, which have a huge influence on our results, obviously. We've all heard the bad tale, Joe. Jim Rohn said, we are the average of the 5 people we spend time around the most. So that can be our paycheck, can be the average of those 5 people. It can be, all kinds of other things. We're the sum average of those 5 people. Maybe that's not a scientific statistic, but it's awfully darn close. If you start looking at the people you spend time with, you start looking at the people spend time with the most, they're going to start acting a lot like that person, or they're around that person because they already are like that person. So if you want to see what your life is going to be like and continue to be like, you need to look at the people around you. What is their life like? And is that what you want your life to be? So that's the tragic tale of Joe. I hope Joe gets his life straightened out. Joe was making nice money as a manager for us and really didn't have a whole lot of responsibilities to do. He went from that to unemployed. I think he was going to sign up with the Army or the National Guard or something like that. So God bless him. I hope he's safe and everything, but he really broke our hearts. Like I said, he was kind of like a family member to us. It hurts you just when you don't hear from these people ever again. On the opposite side of that, you can also improve your life by the people that you hang around. And so how do you do that? Well, for Stephanie and I, as possibly for you, We didn't grow up in a wealthy environment. We didn't grow up around people that had the kind of mindset that we're trying to help you get, or if you already have, try to help you expand that. We weren't really around a lot of open-minded people. They were pretty conservative in certain ways. They were pretty strict by the book in their little world. What that did was, when you're around people that are very limited in their beliefs, and they're very limited in how much money they think they can make, how much money they think you should make, it really can limit the world that you're in if that's the only people that you're around. And it can be really hard to bust out of that and expand what you think you can do. So Stephanie and I, by chance, in a desperate attempt to improve our business because it was going so horribly wrong, we stumbled upon a man named Howard Partridge. He's in our industry as well, does a lot of coaching for people in our industry, and now he's expanded to other industries. But we went to one of his business conferences. It's a lot of small business owners like ourselves, and it's a really cool experience to get to meet other small business owners that are trying to improve themselves. So the very first time we went to Howard's conference, we felt like so out of our league. So I think we were making like maybe 60,000 in sales for the whole year. It might not even have been that much. It might have been like 40,000. It was a crazy low amount. So by the time our expenses and everything, we were probably at the poverty level. In fact, just a couple of years before, we had almost had our house foreclosed on. We had so many financial issues at that time. So we go to this conference and we start hearing some testimonials. You always are going to hear testimonials at these conferences, but we start talking to these people and really like, these are for real people. So this isn't a commercial for Howard. I mean, if you want to learn about Howard, go learn about Howard, but that's not what this is. But I do love Howard. But anyway, so we're hearing from these guys in our industry, and this guy says, everybody's kind of saying some of their success that they had recently. This guy says he did 100,000 in sales the previous month, and everybody's cheering for him. I'm like, man, 100,000 in sales in 1 month? Like, I couldn't even picture doing 100,000 in sales in a year, much less a month. So it really kind of blew my mind, and I kind of felt like out of my league, overwhelmed. So anyway, long story short, we continued to kind of hear these stories and learn from these people, and it slowly started opening up our world a little bit. And so I'll never forget another time we were at a meeting with some of these entrepreneurs, and we're talking about some of our goals. And at that time, again, my goals were a little bit smaller. This was a long time ago. And I think I'd said, I can't remember if my goal was like 100,000 a year or something like that for income, which was a big step for me at the time. And I remember talking to somebody else at my table. We were kind of having these group discussions and telling her what our goals were and telling her, that's a big step for us. We've never really been around, nobody that we know even makes more than like 30,000 a year. And so she said something that kind of stuck out to my wife and I both. She said something like, well, what are those people going to feel like when they see you making 100,000 a year and they only make 30,000 a year? She's like, is that going to be weird? And she didn't say it in a judgmental way or like that we should feel bad about them or anything, but it did kind of make me think. And I said, yeah, they're probably not going to like that. I would never tell them how much I made, or they're going to be almost talking about judgmental. They're definitely going to be judgmental about that. I know my parents really looked down on people that made a lot of money. Like, they came from the viewpoint of that people with money were bad, or that they were greedy, or that they were doing things that they weren't supposed to, or that all they ever thought about was money, from that kind of world. So yeah, I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm not really going to have a lot to relate to those people. They're probably not really going to want to hear from me that much, or if we're buying nicer things, if we upgrade our house or our cars or things like that, they're probably not really going to want to hang around us. And I learned later that that is kind of true, that it makes people uncomfortable. Not the fact that you have more things, but the fact that it kind of makes them feel a little bit bad about themselves, that they're not trying to do better for themselves, that maybe they had a dream at one time and they kind of gave up on that. So yeah, it made me kind of think about that, like, wow, you're right. So do I really, and then I thought about that Jim Rohn quote, the 5 people that you hang around, that's going to be the kind of average income you're going to have. So I thought, maybe I need to keep hanging around these people that have higher incomes, and some of that will rub off on me, because I can talk about money around these people and it's not weird. I can tell them my big goals and dreams later on I expanded my goal to $1 million a year in income, and I could tell them that, and they didn't look at me like I'm some kind of freak or like I was greedy or like, yeah, right, that's stupid, that's crazy. I didn't get that kind of feedback from them. They're like, oh, that's awesome. How are you going to do it? What are some things we can, what's your next step? Or what are some things you can do in your business to accomplish that? It was a very different environment when you're around the right kind of people that want to see you succeed, or that they've done it and they know that it's possible and they want to, kind of give you some tips and pointers on how you can do it. And so what happened was I started seeing the need to surround myself with those type of people and not surround myself with just $20,000, $30,000 a year people, because then if I'm only around those people, that's as far as my consciousness is going to expand. But the more I'm around people that have these big ideas, big dreams, that are accomplishing big things, the more I believe that I can do it. The more I see myself as, oh man, they can do it. They did it, I can do it. So that's really what started to happen, and we started choosing more consciously who we were spending our time with, and it led to bigger things. And honestly, our circle has kind of shrunk since then, because a lot of people did stop hanging around us when we got more successful. And not because they're bad, not because we're bad, anything like that. It's just sometimes, like I said, you get a little uncomfortable around people that don't have the same goals or dreams as you do, or that are, maybe you feel a little jealous that they're not accomplishing what you're doing. But you know what? That's okay. It's okay to have a smaller circle sometimes, because for me personally, I would rather have a smaller circle but with the right people than have a huge circle but have all these negative influences hitting me from all sides, because I feel like that's going to drag your energy down. That's going to help make you accomplish less the more you have, when you have these people that are kind of almost psychically dragging you down. So you either want to have the right type of people around you that are propelling you forward. In one of Jack Canfield's The Success Principles, you want to have the people that are motors, that are helping your boat go forward, not the people that are anchors holding you in the past. Sometimes those people remember you when you were a kid, or when you were a teenager, or when you were struggling in your 20s, and they want to hold you back there. They want to remember the good old days, which is great sometimes to have those memories, but that's not who you want to be the rest of your life. You want to keep growing and building yourself, and you don't want to be that guy always in your 20s. Some of those guys that peaked in high school, they still hang around their buddies from high school because they have those common experiences, but they haven't really expanded or grown since then. So it's so important, the people that you spend time with, the people that you surround yourself with, because those people are giving you thoughts. They're giving you thoughts and ideas, and those ideas are penetrating your subconscious mind. And what goes into your subconscious mind is what manifests in your universe. So guard that. Guard your conscious thoughts, because that's what goes into your subconscious. So guard who you're around and guard what you're letting into your world. And of course, you're going to spend some time with some people that aren't super high performers. Of course, you're sometimes going to be around even some negative people, but you don't want to let that in. You don't want to let it influence who you are. And if you notice that it is, sometimes you need to limit that time that you're spending with those people. Some of them you're going to have to cut. You might want to cut off all the way, because if they're just too big of a drag on your energy, is it really worth that? So think about who you're spending your time with. You don't want to be like Joe, these good things happening to you, but you just throw it all away because you're spending time with the wrong people that are influencing you in the wrong direction. So that's my thought for today. Remember, the average of the 5 people you hang around with. Remember, your friends can make you rich or they can make you broke. So make a conscious choice of who you're letting in that inner circle. All right, well, have a good one, everybody. Again, Jeremy's Skill Level Up. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Do all you need to do in YouTube to help us with this channel so we can build it up and build you up. Have a great day.